So here's some poetry I've written. Here's Blueby the Night, my book here. And this was actually this had been going on for years and years and years. When I first started it, I was really just writing stuff down when I was like 20 years old. It goes back that far. And it's not really a diary, but it follows me through the years. Pathetic and glorious, typical poet stuff, right? So this is a book that I just recently did. I'm not really selling this one, but I just kind of collected some poems in it that I'd been writing over the years, just so I had them in a book form. And I'm going to read one of the poems from this book that I liked. It's called The Waves. It's probably one of the last poems I've written that I really want to read. So anyway, it's called The Waves. I become only a moment as I sit and stare. April river sheen, light streaks upon the curled water, land of forgotten, forsaken nature. Buildings of the city loom a ghostly skyline, true to my distant eyes. Multi-waves of the broad river shine in numerous lucid waterlines. I lay upon the wharf where I poured some of my brother's ashes. Silent sails reflect watery Euclidean perfection. Nowhere this beautiful. Willamette Park's soft heavenly grace, lapping eddies and green silt. Ducks glide, geese honk a honk, the crows control the bent, bold sky. Air flows gently, pulsating our kindred sun's green-laden arbor creations. A dream of soft explanation. The waves, the waves, the waves, and the loneliness you gave. Can't count the waves of light, rolling, falling into the sky's reflection. Death moment, flesh chests of blood, sinew, electric impulses, bone. Across summer's watery glow, rafts float and glide incandescently. Shimmering, glassy, glaring apparitions dance vanilla logarithms. Long, plump, drifting, empty serpentine, glittering solemnity. The waves move in mindless time as the sun drips gold eternally. Okay. Thank you. So I just grabbed stuff from the book. You know the word imperialism. We all know what that means. It's back. Yeah. You know the term manifest destiny? You ever heard that term? Yeah, that's back too. That was actually in the inaugural address. John Kennedy's inaugural address. Listen to it sometime, and then listen to the new address. We've come a long way, baby. This is when I was in Cabo St. Lucas. I never go anywhere really, so that's why I'm probably making a big deal that I went to Cabo St. Lucas. And the only reason I ever go anywhere is usually women. Women usually have always taken me anywhere I go, or my friends from Boston who have more moxie than I do. But this is called Cabo, and this is my you can't take a poet anywhere, right? We start noticing everything, Everybody else is swimming and having fun, and I'm over there, going into this whole historical destruction of Anyway, but here's my poem. We conquered paradise, then hid behind the wounds of Jesus. Swelling waves crash on ages past across the Sea of Cortez. The white flash of light ships undulate daily. Take the catamaran to Santa Maria weeping. Santiago holds the cross with wild children swimming in the eternal brine. The emerald brine and the aquatic pirate hearts rust eternal. Their galleons of testosterone gone, follow the wreckage home. Montezuma hid the gold. The punishment? His arms and legs tied east to west to steeds, the bishop blessed. The king is stretched, split, stomped, splattered, shattered, all in the name of God in gold. This is a book I did, if anybody's thinking of doing an anthology with your friends. I had 3 friends from back east, 1 from Portland, 2 from back east. And we went through Vantage Press, which is in New York City. It's a really old company. And they were pretty cool. They were very professional, you know. They were more than happy to take our money, too, you know. The nice thing about Vanity Press is, you know, they're just happy to help. You know? Just keep those checks coming, you know. But at least when you're working with people like this, they actually do have writers and editors of high caliber. New York, I always feel good when I send something to New York, especially if it's downtown New York, because I know that they've got the smarties out that way. And they usually edit really fast, and they know what they actually have degrees in literature, you know. This is a book that I did called Lost Words, and this was, it was actually an old book that I had that I was just writing stuff down during the late 90s and into the year 2000 up to 9/11. And it was kind of like a journal, I guess, and I realized that they were sort of like poems, so I put them all together, and every poem is called Lost Words. So if you go, same poem, but it's not. Okay, so this is the last poem of this book.
What's it called?
Lost Words. Okay. Giant nothing January sits like a maiden in limbo. The empty courtyard lays cold with hail and snow on the pale concrete. Icy, slow-moving winter blooms. Gloom, we gather to remember. We've been here before, costumed, frozen and forlorn. 21st century, a shooting every day, a nation debt too big to pay, millions on pills willing to kill anyone. Anywhere, the movies play. The earth heats and glaciers fade, days plod circles around the sun. The whatever is no longer welcome to the big mistake. The auditorium is dampened with tart strangers and lost luck. I'm remembering the Pont Neuf, watercoloring the Seine, Eiffel sun water, lights, mystic shadows, in a silent array. Autumn embraced my thoughts, till I forgot I was far away. Paris paused empathically to include me in her day. That was when I was in Paris. And thank you. I'll give you one more from this book here. Okay. So this is when you're writing weird things down, this is one of those. And I looked at it later and I went, it's kind of like Kubla Khan. Everybody know about the poem Kubla Khan by Coleridge? I was going to say something. I was thinking, I have to mention Coleridge when I come here. The fires in California. The first thing that came to me was water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink, because they were right on the ocean. And then I thought of the other line from the Coleridge poem. What is it again? God save thee, ancient mariner, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. And that's kind of really says it all, doesn't it? Anyway, this goes like this. The Grendel, gray deity with umbrella sovereignty, cast winds and waves filled and shrilled with seabirds. Felicity swung by currents that grapple, muscle-shorn feathers, mercurial depths of time and endless. Iron mobiles sail with God. The sea brews and shines green solid blue, with kelp floating slime-bound to and from Western thought. Happily led to a drowning, clones of everything and anything forgone, excuse me. Where did I go back there? Where did I go? To drowning clones of everything and anything foregone by some conclusion. There it is. Okay. Too clever for my own words, yeah. I'll give you one more here. Just two really little ones here. This one's called Island. It's Lost Words. Island, become an island. Though some would love to flee, become an island, become one. And then I had another short one that I liked. Sometimes, when you're writing, these little short ones are good enough, right? And there's this one about a boat that I like. David was asking me, did you have it all ready to go? And I said, no. Of course not. It's probably right here. Here it is. This is up from Lost Words. Boats of yellow serenity slide on the gentle bay. Victorious, genuine, a million lilting waves. Resurrecting and building a shroud of waltzing silt in a fathomless parade of equipoised water. Yeah. Sorry, I had to wait for that. Anyway, thank you. So this is my favorite book that I did. It took forever to get them to edit this. It made me not want to do it for a while. You know. Anybody do any pressing off the internet like this? You've done this? It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because then you're going, who the hell am I talking to?
And I got the idea from you, so thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and you're going, who am I talking to? And then you're typing, oh, now it's Ned. What happened to Carol? You know, like that kind of stuff, you know. She's working, you know. There's probably some apartment in Thailand or something, you know. So this is from A Screen Glows in Brooklyn, and it's called Winter Wind. Purposeful hours maligned by zestful intolerance, fulfillment resting on open shoulders, spread eagle. A past of sorrow and lament dominates the solace. A career of indomitable perseverance shattered. The vital juices for friendship with no one left to meet. A cracked shield, a broken sword, all to last a lifetime. With questions in mind and truth on the horizon, a winter wind, a dark divide, a dream-cast sanctum, a land bearing small, deadly pyramids where machines have the right of way. Wary visitors look both ways before crossing. Have a nice day. Here's one called, keeping it rolling here. The beautiful time in life now disappearing. Blank decisions, life remembered, nights of lost innocence. Twisting back time, waters be calm, eager to be released. Dreams floating away, a puppet dance, a quick release. Bad decisions, a drama I'm eager to lose, jackboot aficionados. Sunlight's revelry, sculpted dreams of majesty, chemtrail signature. Sharp cold winds snake the hellish air, holding still the barren trees. The old theater burned down. The last movie was Bullet Train. Life imitates rifles. The corner church is now a Taco Bell. A freezing family member walks the streets with blue dye on her face. Meth, mental illness, pain and sorrow. Somebody sprayed graffiti all over today. Something beautiful got in their way.
I can keep it.
So we start, yeah, I'll do two more real quick here. This is the one I wrote, this is one I had an old poem that I kind of sandwiched with this other poem, and it really started with the idea that I had this fence in my backyard that kept falling down. When I first moved my house, it was like this really cheap old fence, and the guy behind me was like some drug dealer, and he kept opening his window, "What are you doing in my yard?" And I was trying to put the fence back up, you know, and then this black dude walks over, and he's got a bottle of wine, and he's kind of old, and he's telling me, he's going, "Yeah, you got to nail the 2x4 to the 8x8," and he's like over there cheering me on as I'm trying to put this fence up, you know. And somehow he got in my poem. Anyway, and this is called Fences. Frozen yards of stark wintry vibrations speak in clear tones. A sea of starlight blinks multiplicity, even before our ancestors gazed. Earth's stark vacuum breath froze in ageless disfiguration, exiled thick and useless, purpose-driven and painfully alert. A fingerling of silence, molded by winter's swirling astronomy. The cold grass privacy, years of steadfast depravity, molded like bronze, forced to kill by the director. The fence falls again, shipwrecked. A man drunk on wine narrates our endless seething nightmare. No victory for artists or English majors, hanging from the mast. One day it appeared, a red painted fence, in a gold-heated field. Shimmering childhood magic in simple blind summertime. The production began at 11. Only one showed promise. Only one stopped laughing. His jaw square and taut. His mouth was tight with anger, smirking. I'm not just angry, mimics the director. You want to kill him. The lip, restrained, bulbous lipid, soft aftermath of anger. I will forever lock that gate and never leave this town until Colorado calls me home and my heart is found. Okay, here's the last one. This is called 8 Billion People. I remember early mornings in the fog with ice frost on the windows and ground. The smell of Camas mills, rank odor, blitzing our Maltown ardor. There are 8 billion walking on the earth today in a pandemic atmosphere. Atomic H-bomb tests in the 1950s were hotter than the sun, but deemed okay to play. Cruise ship docked in old Bar Bay towns whisk you off to paradise lost. Get your view of Eden now because we are dying to give it all away. A death waltz in maritime glitter, holding on to time's frozen, leering afterglow. Thank you.
Poem starter 257. I tell too much, but you miss the point, so I must tell too little. Poem starter 1510. Attention is a longer word than span. Poem starter 9854. The words wouldn't play nice, so they were separated, sent to timeout. Poem starter 7777. Remember, the rabbit's foot wasn't lucky for the bunny. Whitman's tree. I saw a Whitman live oak growing. Yes, it was alone, with moss hanging from its branches near a railroad track. I took in its joy, the rich dark green of its leaves, how proud it stood. I wonder if it ever feels less than strong. No partner, no friend nearby. It is not like me who wants a companion, who craves touch. I am sure, beneath the earth, its roots are part of a hidden community. It teaches there is much more than you can see. I wonder if it should ever fall, will it choose to lie across the tracks in a small last act of defiance? I touch this oak and name it Whitman, for the poet who taught so much to so many, and I name it to place it inside of me so I can easily recall the image I have of its grace and beauty. The truth of the larch. The larks in the larches, bird-songing a symphony for mountain goats among the dazzling golden yellow plumage in the mountain wilderness, almost too bright for human eyes. For 2 weeks, this show is fit for the gods, if you hike up the trail to witness it. I remember that fall when we believed it could last. Sometimes when we hear the truth, we will turn bright pink. Learning from Leonard Cohen. You learn about best defenses. Keep tears back with a smile. Never leave the heart out upon your sleeve. The sparkle in the eye proves a passionate, intense life. Some age with intact, vulnerable hearts. It is a blessing, a curse. It is brave, foolish, human. If you have met a few who understand, you are rich. If your heart has been broken more than twice and still gives, you are living your life very well indeed. Lakeside politics. First, I notice the 2 eagles high in the spruce. To my left in the cottonwoods are the nests of a dozen seemingly prehistoric herons, slow motion flying as if created by a Ray Harryhausen stop-motion special effect. On the moist ground, dozens of happy, hopping robins feast on insects, seeds, and worms. In the lake, Wood ducks, coots, buffleheads, and green-winged teals swim in small groups. A crowd of crows fly into the alders, yapping at each other up and down on the branches. I reflect on this. Everyone is here, represented, civil with each other. It seems an understanding, a peace, enough of everything to share. There is less chaos here than what I saw a half hour ago when I turned off my TV. Peace is a religious act. Opens with a quote from Dan Mendelsohn. You think you've heard it all, and you haven't heard it all. Trust me. There's no bottom, as one of my survivors said, of what people will do to one another. The structures of what we think of as our civilized lives, they fall apart very easily, surprisingly easily. 1. What is too far when lies are told and people are striking matches near their children? Do we wait for the fire before we go too far? When the burning begins, it is too late. Someone will have to be the first out on the limb to stop the match from being struck. Are you really waiting for the fire? Need to ask someone about going too far? A politician, a parent, a friend? Do you look away when the child is on fire? If you can't see it, it must not be real. 2. A false truth by an elected official based on a mistaken belief taken from an exaggerated statement representing an error of judgment is still a lie. Nothing good ever comes from a lie. Lies are never poetic. Truth is poetry. Sometimes hope and justice are poetic. They say good art goes too far, breaks taboos, but you can't really go too far for the truth. It is just what is said to keep you in line. 3. Peace is a religious act. Peaceful is not just being still. It means being aggressively against acts of war, injustice, violence. Poverty is an injustice. Being peaceful sometimes means you are nearly still. But if you are completely still, you are dead. The dead can't lie. You don't actually rest in peace when you pass away, as the coffin salesmen too carefully say. You're just completely still and quiet, rotting. I load words into the barrel of this untraceable but unlicensed poem. Better than a gun poem. When I pull the trigger on this poem, the words will hit their target without any innocent bystanders being hurt. It is superior to the gun. The words might be misconstrued and ricochet, but no one will be rushed to the hospital. If someone intoxicated shouts these words at shoppers in the mall, or towards cars driving by, or at students in a school cafeteria, no blood will be spilled. When this poem is left out on a kitchen table and it is touched by a curious child, no tragedy will result. It is superior to the gun. So I'm going to pass these out so you can, at your own discretion, look at them. Please pass them around. Look at them. There is nothing wrong with your TV set. TV Misfits and Me. The Outer Limits, specifically the episode featuring the ant-like aliens with almost human faces called the Xanti Misfits, terrified me. We control the vertical. We control the horizontal. For the next hour, sit quietly, and we will control all that you see and hear. I had the equivalent of young boy PTSD for months. I had nightmares about this episode for years. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. Every detail of this episode is part of my permanent memory. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits. Alien felons escaped from prison on another planet and have come to Earth. They are not friendly. They are not harmless. They look like giant beetle ants with strange, almost human faces, and they make an awful noise. There was the sound effects, the music, the visuals. I was 5.5 when I first saw it, right after Christmas, December 30th, 1963. I would see it again 6 months later in 1964, and then did not see it for decades, but vividly remembered almost all of the episode. Bruce Dern has an important supporting role. It was a low-budget TV show, lasted less than 2 years, revived 30 years later. When seen today, many would say the special effects were pretty crude and laughable, but at the time, they were good enough to convince. It haunted me to the core. Slowly, I conquered my fear of the deformed creatures. I love monsters. 1950s creature features, Ray Harryhausen, Sinbad, Jason movies. I love creepy, macabre movies that challenge me to be scared, be frightened. But nothing ever got to me so deeply as those anti-misfits did. Haunted by the images, the idea of evil aliens looking like deadly insects attacking innocent people, I knew it was so far-fetched it couldn't really happen. I became comfortable with fear, even enjoyed being scared and disturbed by the images and ideas. I told myself it was a silly manipulation designed to scare not just me, but a large audience, using a purposeful, tested technique and style that I could break down and understand. A formula employed to create the suspense and horror, similar to music composition. Hitchcock was a master at it. Edward Jr., a clown. Some episodes of The Outer Limits, The Twilight Zone, Thriller, and other programs did a very good job. The Zanti Misfits is remembered as one of the best of its type from its era. I was scared by a classic. I have warm, good memories of the experience, the way I slowly conquered my fears and my feelings and learned about writing, storytelling, effective techniques to create memorable moments. And I think now, this scary episode prepared me in a way for the terrifying times we now live, where felons rule our country and chaotically, lawlessly attack without conscience while avoiding compromise. How the misfits attempted through force to take over. Too many hesitated, acted with civility to fight against the rule-breaking, selfish monsters. We repeat, there is something very wrong with your country. We control the tariffs. We control the immigrants. We can change the focus. We can confuse the electorate. You can listen. You can sit back and watch as your authoritarian, near-fascist dictatorship forces their will through the halls of justice into the inner cities, the suburbs, and the outer limits. Three is in the fry. It is that third bird that waits, watches, and the third human watching the birds, noticing crows are in groups, ravens are in pairs. The couple, two as one, some pretend, but better two as in two perspectives, creating the third thing, the love, that makes both bigger, stronger, better. Two, turn from the bric-a-brac box into the gallery. The paintings gathered in threes, not by artist, not always by subject or even style, but by, wait for it, games, puzzles, yes, and tones. Three. These three use dark blues, those three of the sea. These have three objects in each work, three portraits of art collectors. And reflected in the glass, it is Caroline. How the world changes. Oh no, I was going to read this one first. Hold on. So, an homage to the most influential poet of the modern age, undeniably Seuss. Oh, the places I would go and the things I could do and all the things I could think just to gaze upon your sneetches, smell your green eggs and ham, or to touch your yurtle. My mouth waters when I think of your ying or you in the gox with the yellow socks, that mop-noodled finch. Oh, what I would do with your nasm of basm if given half a chance. Nothing can prevent this obsession I have, not Pipper or Skipper, Dinwiddie, Slinky, Stinky, or any of the other Fuddnuddler brothers. Not the single files, Zunny and Zucks, the outgoing Zacks, Thidwick the Moose, the quick queen of Quincy, or even the mayor of Whoville himself can control this zizzer, zazzer, zuzz of a wacket I feel that surpasses my longing for little Lola Lop or the right side up song girls, or even Yolando Waldo Jorensen. Now, don't get all Miss Fuddly-Duddle on me, or tell me I'm no better than a peeping Nurgle, or I belong with Van Vleck, the Vipper of Vip. Horton the elephant and the mazy bird has told me in no queet, quigger, or clots that my pre-pelf prue was made for your sneelock, and you can count your zummers that I will not be denied. I'll count 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish, win the butter battles and cooperate with Sam I am, but I'll hold your varooms, caress your yurdles, and walk woombus and whoomp with you down Mulberry Street if it's the very last thing I ever twilliger do. In less than a minute, I'm going to call Alex up here to help me, because I need it. How the world changes. The flat stone, thrown sideways with flick of the wrist, skips the surface of water on the river, clicks into the rock bed on the other side. The world changed again. Alex! What's this one called? Thirds. Win, place, show. Me. 3 in a match. Made in heaven. Hell. Purgatory. Black, white. Together, gray. Father, Son, Holy Ghost. When the cock crows thrice, you'll deny. Once, twice, 3 times the lover. And baby makes 3 times 3 times 3, or the 27th day, which they say is the end. Knock 3 times. Death comes in 3s. 3 strikes you're out with the old ball game. 3rd time lucky charm. Buy 2, get 1 free. Here's to the 3rd of our lives we dream in a blink of our 3rd eye. You ready to do some poem starters? Oh, yeah. Oh, glad. Okay. Go ahead. When the earth sighs, we call it the wind. Art creates ideas that contain conversations long after the artist has left the room. Writing on the edge of a postcard, I protect revolutionary thoughts and let them breathe. If it must be over-explained, it will be less than understood. It is in the intimate discovery, inside a whisper, the best flows of thoughts from the heart expose truth. Alex, try not to dislike yourself so much that you don't trust people who seem to like you. And finally, it is in the imperfections the best of us sing out. Thank you very much.
I thought it meant something. The title is We Are Not Museums. You are not a museum with ancient memories lurking in dusty bins, jumbled up in piles where a river once flowed freely. The past is not welcome here, where once barking dogs now sleep through the night, yet you lie awake before dawn. You and I were joined and now split asunder. I hunt for the map to find out what once was a familiar path to the beginning of the journey. I am not a museum of yesterday's accomplishments, trophies filling rows of glass cases, a small bronze plaque, break in case of emergencies. Back home, my mottled skin makes a case for vulnerability. The jury is still out on the final verdict. The judge appears bored with all the back and forth. I escape through a back door where you wait, in the boat, oars in hand, beckoning me, our destination revealed in your smile.
These are a couple of poems from a manuscript I've been working on for a while. It's about a little town where I grew up in Virginia called Fredericksburg during the 1950s and 60s. Apartheid, basically, in the United States. I think they're timely poems for now, unfortunately. Goodbye, Fats, from 1968, prom night. Strolling to walking to New Orleans in the old gym, hung with cheap crepe paper and cheesecloth. White kids finding rhythm in Fat's new song and bootleg gin. Were we ever that young? Were we ever that innocent? Were we ever so blind where color was concerned? His music was our music, we thought. We could see only that far, but not down the road, past the whites-only signs, proclaiming our privilege and our prejudice, our luck of birth, being born colorless in that country. Just to the end of the shag line on a warm summer night, dreaming of later down by the river and Fat's sweet music, I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill. Everyone in the little town I grew up in, whether the white families were middle class or upper middle class, always had African American help. That's what it was called. This is called molded in the shape of a smile. Most of my childhood was spent in a schizophrenic state called segregation, split apart by a color line drawn by an angry white fist down the middle of the street. In a small town like ours, everyone pretended this was life, pretended this was acceptable. Like German housewives complaining about that smell down the road, but getting on with the laundry. When the world turned as the freedom riders and buses and King and the cameras rolled on the fire hoses and the dogs, we sat in front of our old black and white TV together repeating, how awful, as if seeing it for the first time, as if it wasn't where we lived, as if it wasn't what we believed. And our maid stood by, her dark eyes blazing, lips molded in the shape of a smile. Thanks.
I'm just going to read a couple. Clock tick. I grow older as my name does. 8 letters too long for a skinny girl of 9 years. My eyes shutting, waiting for the next letter to arrive. Father always needed space between fork and necessary knife. Mother stirring at the stove while the pot swallowed unspoken words. Sometimes organs fail and the brain hands out cue cards to confuse us. I shoved them in my back pocket, bulging at the mouth of day. The sun returns, a little happier one. The sun returns, unaffected by the whims of the world, bounces off early morning's coffee brew in the unwashed pan sitting on the greasy stove. Even the aged succulent raises her stiffed arms in delight, as the unswept floor glows in her lowered brow, as if morning itself stood in applause, clapping like the clattering alders in the forest's deep mouth. Thank you.
So a saw kerf is when the blade passes through the wood, that space that is created by the blade is sometimes referred to as a kerf. The saw kerf. The roof was sloped, a tough pitch for us to buck the bulk of the wind-laid spruce that shattered the Rambler's gable. I was keen to feel the mineral grit of an asphalt shingle beneath my feet and not misstep in needles as we limped to either side of an electrical wire. Bough after bough, the chainsaw cried from the kerf until we bared the trunk. You swept the debris from your beard and handed me the banshee. Don't push, it'll kick back. There are stories I know I can't bear to hear or tell. I replied, I've used this before, to which you said, move your foot before you start. I moved my foot. My father, I said, he owned a shop, but never showed me a thing. You studied the punctured roof. I never brought my son to the job site. No value anymore in a tradesman's knowledge. In the silence that followed, I pulled the cord and angled in at the base of the saw, though before long you retrieved the demon and plied it into the pith at 2 foot lengths as I heaved the blow down from the eave into the side yard. Returning to the heap of brambles, my breath angry in the air, I told myself that you preferred more at your age to cut than haul. But I feared, oh, the devil in me had wished for you the worst. When I saw you oblivious by a crimson pool that widened in the shingle moss, and you held your gut and had a long sit from hard laughing to see then the cap off the bar oil as it emptied at your feet. So I sat too, sawdust in the creases of my neck and in my mouth, the sap taste of the fallen life we were up against. This is called Extras. I was dating this guy, and very much in the periphery of my life, this experience. But that's the story of this poem is itself kind of in the periphery. I was a transient man with a scrawled sign. You walked by me eating a rye sandwich, our shapes blurred, abstract for the scene to switch. We were speaking, but it was pantomime. The heroes strode around the doomed city in marvelous costumes, lycra, reds, blues, white gloves, impenetrable masks and shoes, weapons and quips sharpened impossibly keen. I was the vendor at a booth, turning to you in open-eyed awe at the villain's ascent in the machine of his creation. In his wake, the city ash or burning. The scene was a blip. You in your red coat, the earth bumped from its hitch, and the dark moon approached to embrace us in our ruin. You pulled a dog from the street, cars afloat in the loosened tidewaters. The heroes, though, dispelled evil from the earth again and put the earth to rights with the moon, its friend. You sip coffee by the cafe windows, ancillary, just your back and black hair. And I'm not visible, just a shadow. As the music reaches bright crescendo, we knew, though, who we were to each other.
In the not-too-distant future, I'm going to read 2 poems tonight. The first one, Seth, I dedicate to you. Seth, his dad was, it's hard to explain Jack McCarthy, but he was a slam poet, a champion slam poet. I met him at a but you know who I'm talking about, Margaret? I met him at the Hugo House, Richard Hugo House, and they were doing like a thing for him, and this 19-year-old girl said, I did my first slam thing, and I knew I was going to be terrible, and I was terrible. I was the worst slam poet in the history of slamming. And afterwards, I went backstage, and Jack McCarthy said, you were spectacular. You were amazing. You're going to be here next week and every week after that. And she said, and I was, because of what he said. That was Jack McCarthy. This is called Soda Fountain, an ode to Old John. Slapdash, backlash, succotash waltz. Daddy drinks the chocolate shakes, Mama likes the malts. Little Petey's root beer floats and Jan's banana splits. Nostalgia is a shark skin suit, amazing, it still fits. A man is singing to himself, the jukebox, his best friend. He has a cane, he's kind of old, and he can see the end. But it is clear he has no fear of this much. He is sure death is not the end of life, just the next adventure. And when the family drives on home content in their new car, they talk about the singing man admired from afar. They seem to know he loves this world. He's lived a lot of years, and he'll live 1,000,000 more, my friend, 1,000,000 miles from here. Thank you. And it was really Lou who was up here one night talking about his relationship with his publisher, Austin Macaulay, that got me, I was talking to Lou outside, that got me involved with a very similar hybrid publisher. So I've got a book coming out. It's coming out in May. Sandra, I don't know if you can reach over, but under my file folder right there is the cover art. If you could hold it up. Yeah, so that's the cover art. The name of the book is called Orgy at the Chinchilla Ranch. Let me just repeat that. Orgy at the Chinchilla Ranch. Number one, I feel like I'm now always going to have to explain the title whenever I do a reading. And number two, thank God my Catholic mother's not alive to hear this. Okay. Hair. My wife slinks in the house with a vein-sized crack in her timber and asks, well, what do you think? Matrimonied for 7 years, I have learned the finer points of this intersection the hard way. I have learned to look for signs of soft eyes, a crack in her timber. I am a reluctant peacock eyeballing a peahen, uncertain whether to spread the full deck of his plumage. She is on the cliff face of tears. This much is obvious. Perhaps she has been crying. My wife takes her hair very seriously, and I have years of trial and error scars to prove it. And that she has been weeping is not altogether unfathomable, as her hair resembles an orgy at a chinchilla ranch. Sit down, honey, I say with the sincerity of someone about to fleece you at the poker table. Sit down. And I circle around her buzzard-like 360 loops of animal husbandry. Phenomenal, phenomenal, I whisper, replete with reptile smile. It accentuates your cheekbones. It's so chic, it's so radical, and you have the perfect facial features to pull it off. And I sell like P.T. Barnum, coaxing a one-armed lion tamer back into the ring, and then careful not to overdo it, careful not to become the scapegoat of this full-on follicle assault. I go back to watching the basketball game on TV, having rediscovered the tenuous magic in my wife's hair and all the other secrets up there. Thank you.
I have 3 quick pieces. One is in tribute to mothers for Mother's Day, just recently passed, called The Gift of Guiding Light. Mothers are what mothers do all day, every day. Love dispensers, good and patient listeners holding fast to the light, holding a light in the darkness. Sacrifice and patience tips the scales of weights and measures on the ever-expanding circle of life. Once upon a time, twice upon a lifetime. Mother's Day, besides being a hallmark holiday, is but a reminder that every day is Mother's Day, with lessons learned, lessons failed, and in the failing, more lessons learned, shaped and sculptured with truth, integrity, courage, and love. There are many kinds of mothers, but only one kind of love, following along the generational path, wholehearted, indivisible, painted with patience, lots and lots of patience, and eventually earning the title of one day be calling grand, as roots run deep in the garden of time. Mothers are travelers through sunshine and rain, tending flowers from seeds, separating life from loss, patching skinned knees and wounded hearts with synergy and serenity, painted with colors of gratitude, creating a mansion of memories from Mother's Day to every other day, with love the ever-spoken language. No one really understands a mother except for another mother, but everyone can stand and salute and celebrate with loving pride all that is the magic of motherhood, the unmatched gift of guiding light. This is called Irish Blood. I was an accidental son of the grandson of an Irish immigrant, bleeding Irish blood from all my childhood wounds. My best Irish friend was always me. I never took the time to read the Irish poets like Yeats and Joyce and Wilde, Beckett, Lewis, and Moore, for time was the currency of my youth, which was spent on leaving the neighborhood. I've only visited Ireland in the recesses of my mind, and my podium. I've only visited Ireland in the recesses of my mind, identifying more with the Irish paupers than with the champions of prose. I'm older now, the ice is getting thinner, the thaw is coming, and regret is in the wind, with acceptance not far behind, tinted in soft Irish green. The only Ireland that I can see from here is through the eyes of others, in their photographs and memories, in their stories and songs, and in whatever Irish blood I've been able to pass on to my wild Irish children. And the last one is called Knowledge. I know so little about her, where she works, if she works, where the loneliness comes from. I know so little about her, only her words that seem to dance in the shadow of knowledge. Has she known love, lost love, rejected love, stained by the ugliness of once upon a time? Does she sleep alone, kiss with her mouth open, speak to the trees in summertime, answer the call of time? Does she sleep on the left side or the right? In the vastness of knowledge, on the mountain of wonder, while the world slips sideways, I realize with real eyes, I know so little.
Hello. Boy, in these crazy, crazy TV political times, I try and be here now. You know what I mean? Keep it present, baby. So this is about that. It's called The Seagulls of Alcatraz. The seagulls of Alcatraz don't have any fond or bitter memories. They are glad to have a rock to stand on, to watch the city across the bay. I never could do that mantra thing, so. Okay. Do it like the kids do it. Season of the Rich. Season of the Witch. You ever hear about it? Steve Winwood, I don't know what it means. I don't know whoever wrote it. Bowie covered it, and so did Sid Petty, and Bob Dylan illustrated it, but in the end, he went for the money. Who wouldn't, I think? Am I a communist the way I'm thinking? Or is society working for the family? Verizon without payola is just another dead fucking phone. I think I'm a Catholic. My mask is wearing thin, facing ageism every day, racism, humanism, ism. John Lennon said that. Only lonely mothers know true heroism. The rest is genetic. The rest of the world surviving our current president, oh, the horror, must be season of the witch. I'll do one more here, maybe two, but one for sure. It's called Break for Traffic. Life is hardly hard-bottomed, hard-caked. Oh, it's all I can take. I can't afford to protest, afraid to drive around without my papers. Michael reminds me one time down Mexico, wrong road, machine alley, cockroach keyboard, baby. Cowboy hard hats are getting down to family planning. See those there? That's for you. Not so bad, nice and new. Me and my baby on the 53rd floor have lots to do. And the wireless is out of this world. Aerial poop mapper and poop master on a rope is behind the walls where brass balls they must have. No door to a poach, no more than we can chew. Know that the boom is over, it's a lack you know. Hard bottom belly, things I used to have. Pol Pot got his shot, so did Big Bob. And yeah, I'm a big slob because I can't sell. Everybody's on track to get their own money back. Cowgirl, hoop cut, Nisqually, I love your hair. Shine on always, girl. Where are the old vets and old timers, coffee and a Danish, taking care of business? Check your tire pressure there on I-5 rest stops in the Great Northwest elephant grass, trailer tractor, picnic table, pet area ahead. What has happened to the record stores, the scales to weigh your produce so you know what you're committing to? Dear God, grapes with brand names? I'm the insane one? Shut your mouth, flowing river, full of golden silver, northwest salmon jumping, leaping like shiny water, coming home again, as it always will, more than a legend until they've gone to Mars. Then we'll take the bars back, maybe skating rinks on their large buildings, make swimming lanes and algae farms.
Saturn's moons. Okay, I read this week that Saturn now has 128 additional moons, for a total of 274 known moons. Okay, that's too many. I mean, mighty Jupiter is second with 95 this week. Still too many. Why do we only get one? Wouldn't it be marvelous for us to have about 8 moons? All different colors, of course, and sizes and orbits and appearances and disappearances. Would this distract us from our nonsense? From our stupid plunder of each other and our Earth? I wonder. I wish we had 8 moons, but we only have our one, our lonely beauty on her curious, mystical path, pulling our oceans back and forth. Yeah. You now know that I have to write 7 moon poems about the other 7. Thinking about that. I just had a big birthday, turned 80 last month, and getting used to that, but you know you're getting old when somebody says, man, you don't look a day over 70, and you take it as a compliment, a sincere compliment. This is Song of My Skin. I think I'm supposed to despise my wrinkled skin with the blotches and liver spots and that would have made my 20-something self cringe. I should wish that the spidery red and purple veins that populate my ankles were gone and returned to that creamy, unblemished mocha of middle school summers. But I run my grateful fingers over this plain of wrinkles, feel a pure gush of love as unexplainable as the joy I recall from the sound of a burble of water sliding over a stone I heard in a mountain stream, the sight of swaying of the moss grass in the current as it runs past stones of regret. Light twinkles off the surface, and for a moment, I'm breathless. For at the end of my wrist, I see my great-grandfather's hand. Lost in time, unknown to us all, I reach back for him, tears streaming across the moss. Tell me, what tools did you grasp? What did you see?
Anyhow, I'm going to read a piece in that hot and lucrative new literary genre, late boomer nostalgia. Because if poets can't remind us of when America was great, who can? This poem is entitled Red Keds. Every year at the end of August, Mom and I would drive the 20-odd miles to the big city to buy me my school clothes for the term, so I could look nice when they pried my broken body out of the rubble after the Ruskies had bombed us, and all the survivors would know I had a mother who cared. Even though I was from the hick town of Ontario, New York, I felt I had an advantage over those idiot kids I saw on newsreels, crouched under their desks in broad daylight, totally exposed to deadly radiation. Not us. We were herded into the boiler room of the 1895 brick monstrosity that was Wayne Primary School to sit in the gloom with the spiderwebs and mouse turds and Norman Bates' dead mother, where, in our fortified comfort, we could totally see ourselves emerging unscathed from the blast and eager to begin recess on the newly formed post-apocalyptic fields of nuclear rubble. But I digress. Trying on clothes was my least favorite thing in the world, but it was still exciting to be in the megalopolis that was Rochester, with its fancy J.C. Penney store, where, in the shoe department, a middle-aged guy in a white shirt and tie would come out and wait on you, even if you were 4 years old, and measure your foot with a silver and black contraption called the Brannock device, invented in 1925. Little illustration there. Which looked so scientific and technical that you knew that the guy wielding such an instrument must be a highly trained professional whose job you could only aspire to by working hard in your classes and being a clean American boy. Anyhow, for the past couple years running, or about half my lifetime to that point, I had been begging Mom to buy me a pair of red Keds, easily the most aggressively advertised sneaker in the universe, strategically placed for my demographic as commercial breaks during the 8-man cartoon show. The first half of this 1-minute Madison Avenue classic featured Kedso, a creepy and annoying animated clown who leads us in a sing-along of the company jingle. If you want shoes with lots of pep, get Keds, kids, Keds. With bounce and zoom in every step, get Keds, kids, Keds. Followed, in a marvel of cinematic wizardry, by a live-action animation hybrid where Kedzo is joined by 2 milk-fed, freckle-faced, apple-cheeked, buzz-cutted fascists. Obviously brothers, who enthused over the Ubermensch footwear, which would enable us to run faster and jump further and get oversized badges with the word champ emblazoned in large letters. And Kedzo wasn't just bullshitting us, no siree Bob. He was totally transparent about the special features that produced these superpowers, such as the shock-proof arches and being made of genuine United States rubber. The very stuff that made us the greatest country in the world and gave us the edge over those commie kids whose gym shoes were made up of folded-up copies of Pravda and used chewing gum. And yet, every year, I would end up with an inferior, cheaper brand of sneaker that did absolutely nothing to enhance my natural abilities, which, to be frank, were nothing to write home about. Until finally, just before the start of 3rd grade, Mom was broken down by my incessant wheedling and plunked down a couple bucks over her carefully wrought budget just to shut me up. For the entire trip home, I cradled the shoebox on my lap, frequently lifting the lid to gaze at the splendor of the crimson canvas and admire the blue and white U.S. Keds logo at the heel. Notice how they subtly incorporated the colors of the great flag of our nation in the design. Arriving home, I made a beeline to our basement rec room, to get some privacy, and with trembling fingers laced the stiff new shoes. Now, our basement had a cement floor covered with a thin all-weather carpet meant for outdoor use because of the seasonal flooding. The point being that it was a hard floor without any give. Gingerly, I stomped both feet on the ground. No noticeable difference. My eyes lit on the circular white naugahyde hassock, about 18 inches high, in the middle of the room. This was my favorite piece of furniture, which I would often tip on its side and drape myself over, rocking back and forth while watching TV and feeling strangely comforted in my prepubescent genital area, in a manner recently brought back into fashion by J.D. Vance. But again, I digress. Leaping over the hassock easily, I hit the floor. Wham! Boing! Holy crap, it was like a trampoline. Shot like a bullet, I ran around the perimeter of the room, gathering momentum at such a fiendish pace that I was nothing but a blur with a red line at the bottom, just like the Flash. Centrifugal force soon had me running up the walls like Donald O'Connor in Singing in the Rain. And thanks to the traction of U.S. rubber, I was defying the physical laws of gravity and actually dancing on the ceiling, like in that Fred Astaire movie that no one remembers the name of or watches except for the part where he dances on the ceiling. Returning to the floor in a somersault, triple Lutz, toe loop, double axel pirouette that I invented on the spot, I braced my legs to cushion my landing and knew I was ready for the first day of school tomorrow. So, Kedso, perhaps you could explain to me why I was still the last kid chosen when they chose people for the... Let me try that again. Still the last chosen when they drew up sides for dodgeball teams for yet an entire year. Thank you. Way to screw up the punchline. All right.
So, Neil, you spoke about one kind of love, and some of you here know that I am on a project called Today Love Is, which I began on the one-year anniversary of the hostages held in Gaza. And every day is a Today Love Is. Today would be day 220. But I'm going to read day 165, which was day 531 of captivity. What you might need to know for this one is that a flock of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope. I know, right? Today Love Is the Oyamel Forest Sanctuary, emptying out its overwintering monarchs, leaving Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains unclustering by the tens of thousands from a single tree, using a single flyway over central Texas, mating and depositing solitary egg sacs, one at a time, under milkwood leaves, then flying high by day, roosting by night, finally dispersing to their home territories, 3,000 miles journeyed by creatures weighing less than a gram. The habeas religiosa, or sacred fir, the wild black cherry, the bayberry thicket, the groundsel. What is love if not a spiritual practice? A religion, if we hadn't spoiled that word. A sacred daily prayer that our beloved survive the journey, find their path, know where they are going and how to find their way home, find shelter from cold under canopies, warm themselves in the sun, feel the protection of the cluster at night, fly jointly by day, taking turns at the more vulnerable edge and in the inner sanctum of the kaleidoscope. What is love if not the practice of awe at how something new emerges from the chrysalis? Fresh paint still wet on its wings that unfurl and dry before it sets out in search of nectar. Love is the hallowed name of transformation, of migration. The thing we love disintegrates, becomes another thing we will also love in the unbroken cycle of life. Okay. And there was a berry reference earlier, so I'm going to read this. A handful of blackberries. because pretty soon we're going to have them. Purple, black, and plump, still warm from the vine, I held them like dandelion flowers or a sacred dirty crow feather in a child's sweaty hand. I am treasure seeker, willing to brush off dirt or dust, cut off moldy rind, reach through brambly thorns, past the green, yellow, orange, and even red berries to caress, then catch the ripe moment. Hold it palm open, carry it home with a sing-song of nonsense. Blackberry, white berry, red berry, blueberry, whortleberry, boxberry, foxberry, spiceberry, niceberry, Juneberry, moonberry, summerberry, youberry, meberry. Toss it with the finest ingredients on a tostada with manchego and arugula, chili flakes and Bartlett pear. The heat slowly rises and coaxes the juices. It spills and tints. Then, only then, do I allow myself to taste. Staining the corners of my mouth purple-black, like using Mom's lipstick when she wasn't looking. My face a fright of pleasure. The blackberry moments I pick when summer has been long enough with us to dry the sodden ground, make me forget, almost, what has come before.
So since I've been at home, I have a pile of New Yorkers, and many of them have not been read, but I started reading them, and that stuff is filled with awesome stuff. I love that magazine. So I ran into a large article, one of those New Yorker articles that goes forever and ever. And it was all about pigeons. So I learned that Charles Darwin loved pigeons. This will be a poem someday. It's not right now. He met with Carl Linnaeus of the kingdom, phylum, class guy. They agreed that a pigeon is the same animal as a dove. So, if you're in charge of setting a series of doves free after a loving marriage ceremony, go over to the corner of 8th and 4th Street. Take a can of white glossy paint, capture a pigeon who cannot move fast, and put him into a sock and then spray. Make sure the pigeon or dove is dry when you let it go. There are people in New York City who rescue pigeons who cannot flee, homing pigeons, and if they lose the ability to fly, will walk for weeks or months to return to their home. Write this up. Tell Disney Pictures this is a story. It will be a bestseller. Reality. A woman in New York catches pigeons that are hurt, wraps them in a sock, and takes them to her little hospital, where a team then anesthetizes the bird. The group then carefully removes any obstruction binding their legs together. Tweezers, tiny scissors, help remove thousands of small implements, adding to the obstructions that tangle their feet. The team works like watchmakers, removing small strings, human hair, dental floss, and more. Then the pigeons start to wake up, and after a few hours in the recovery room, they go to a nice, quiet place to let their wounds heal, then released back to where they were found. Don't take one of these pigeons. They've been through a lot. Plain ones off the corner, take them. Or go over to Miss Lucy by the piano bench in the park and take a pigeon and put it in a sock.
So I have 3 poems, I think. 2 of them are very short. This first one's an older one, but recently unearthed and kind of light, so I figured, why not? Breathe it into the world. Okay. It's called A Call to Dishwashers. I never liked washing dishes. You could find me in a book in front of flashing cartoons, I'd be scrubbing toilets before you see me touching dirty dinnerware. Brown water filled with bits of left behinds. Don't get dirty, they pleaded, like my child mind could grasp mud puddle splashing as bad, yet mucky sinks were good. Grudgingly, I gave in for college roommates, clean kitchens, and now I savor the repetition, relaxation, a time to think without screens, to complete a to-do. If only other problems were as easy to fix as a grimy bowl waiting to be rinsed. This other one is part of a series I'm working on pulling from my work experience. So if anyone worked in a corporate job, this might feel relatable. It's called Curing Cancer. It's the usual one-on-one, but it's been a year, and though your manager hasn't given much feedback, you're pretty sure you're doing well, so you ask, what would I need to get promoted? The man spurts out a laugh, a funny face, then an, oh, you weren't trying to be funny, falling face. Well, around here, you pretty much have to cure cancer. So you do. You research, you meet with doctors, you rent out space in the local university lab. You don't have a degree in medicine, but you try hard and learn fast and know how to Google. After a miraculous 6 months, you cure one type of cancer. You go back to your manager and present the evidence. He hems and haws. Maybe this might be enough, but it's only one cancer cured. And also, did you bring others along? Hold a high bar. Be frugal about it. The promotion doesn't go through, you are told, because 2 people who've been there longer deserved it, and they need to maintain certain curves and percentages, so not this time, but let's try for next year. Maybe you can cure world hunger. That would make a much more appealing, well-rounded, improbable proposal. You open up your laptop, consider LinkedIn or Indeed or other job search sites, but instead you go to google.com, type world hunger, start looking for answers. No. And then my last one is one that I finished today, so very recent, but it's bringing me joy right now, so yeah, I wanted to read it. It's in memory of my friend Hannah. It's called Gaze. Manatees are described as slow-moving and calm, and maybe that's why you liked me. For all your wildness and snapping ton, I was your large lump of a mammal bumping gently at your feet. When you told me your adoration of the curious sea cows in Florida, I admit I was confused. They are not the smartest, I think, and certainly not the prettiest. Great gray blocks of noses surfacing for air, their gazes verging on gawking. But I should have believed you then. Some wonders come quietly, emerging from warm, kelpy waters. Some loves start with just being seen. Thanks.
Lou said you can't take a poet anywhere. I didn't mean to write a book of poetry about Korea, but when my wife and I went and marched to see our friends, we had long car rides and long train rides, and I couldn't help but write 60 poems in 2 weeks. So I'll just read, but many of them are very, very short, so I'll just read 5. Underneath Jirisun. The milk of haze flowing between the mountains sustains my dream of someday seeing Korea. Perhaps this homestead garden of camellias, radishes, and wild peaches is worthy of my single-minded care. The ultimate fate of Korea, a passing thought. Around the table, drawing from the same bowl of muchum, the same swirling bottle of makgeolli, day after day, we are becoming more like brothers with each fresh taste of home. Cycles. What is this grief at the rear of the temple? Gazing at the limits of the courtyard, the forest swaying around a ridgeline tuning fork. Beauty no longer entails the world. Elegance is anachronistic. a dream of expired possession. I weep until I visit the water wheel at the pond below. And then one last, tree ears and grilled eel. What would I have done had I been born in another century with no way to imagine enjoying this feast with you? Anyway. Thank you much. And
The Midwest. A friend had just returned from his studies at seminary in Mundelein, Illinois. I hate Midwesterners, he said. Chicago's okay, but I can't stand the Midwest. I hate the Midwest. Well, part of that has to do with geography, I said. Being from the Midwest myself. On expanding golf. Golf legend Bobby Jones won the Grand Slam in 1930 and went on to design Augusta National Golf Club on the site of a beautiful nursery in Augusta, Georgia, that's now the home of the Masters. Let's expand the field for clergy. Call it the pastors. If played during Lent, make it the fasters. Clergy being fishers of men, why not one for fishermen? Dub it the casters. No leaving minors out when they can hit the blasters. Late for your tea time? Join the procrastinators. Those not making the cut would be in the disasters. Golf, it's been said, has been too exclusive, so let's grow the field to be more inclusive. Add the pastors, fasters, casters, blasters, procrastinators, and disasters, increasing the field of play on bunkers, greens, and fairway to bring in golf's new day, expanding the Masters.
I've been reading a book recently. It's a long book, or hard. I mean, it's a book that needs digesting, and it's by a German philosopher, a young guy named Sauer. I forget his first name. It's called The Invention of Good and Evil, which drew my attention. I read an article about it in the New Yorker, and that got me. And I don't do much reading of books. I've kind of given up on books. But I had to read this book, and it's basically a world history of morality, and it goes back 5 million years ago. And the one thing I kind of am getting from the book is that altruism and cooperation are pretty amazing things to even exist in human society, because they really, for a long time, really didn't help with survival that much. It was kind of the opposite, the freeloaders and the exploitive kind of behaviors. So anyway, I have a deeper appreciation for cooperation when I see it. And I keep referring to this as a community, and I think somebody kind of talked about it as a family. But that was an extraordinary act of cooperation of the 13 of you or so that were part of Community Mike, that you somehow managed to express yourself beautifully, wonderfully, enjoyably for me, and still allow us to be able to wrap this up by 8 and hear David. So thank you for that cooperation.